Hi everyone here and around the world. You know, it would be fun tonight if you can help my Earthfiles YouTube channel break through 220,000 subscribers, and we're almost there. So if you haven't subscribed, please click in your lower right screen on the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps Earthfiles at YouTube. Remember last month, on September 26, 2022, there was news that NASA's DART spacecraft, an acronym for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, it was moving at 14,000 miles an hour to deliberately smash head-on into a 160-meter-wide asteroid called Dimorphos. The reason for the DART test? To see if the smaller Dimorphos asteroid's path that orbits a second larger 500-kilogram asteroid called Dimorphos could be changed by the DART spacecraft impact. It was an important test to find out if Earth humans can actually deflect an incoming asteroid in order to save Earth life. 65 million years ago, most dinosaurs on Earth were wiped out to extinction after a 6-mile-wide asteroid crashed into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, for the first time ever, human technology has altered the orbit of a celestial body coming toward Earth. Yesterday, October 11th, 2022, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson celebrated in a press conference that the DART mission worked beyond expectations.
We conducted humanity's first planetary defense test. And we showed the world that NASA is serious as a defender of this planet. Last November, just before Thanksgiving, a Falcon 9 carrying NASA's first planetary defense test mission launched from the Vandenberg Space Force Base. And after a 10-month journey, millions of miles, NASA successfully crashed a refrigerator-sized spacecraft into the asteroid Dimorphos, 7 million miles from Earth, and it came in at 14,000 miles an hour, and it was a bullseye. And so today, NASA confirms that DART successfully changed the targeted asteroid's trajectory. Now, how do we know that? Well, prior to DART's impact, it took Dimorphos 11 hours and 55 minutes to orbit its larger parent asteroid, Dimorphos. DART shortened the 11-hour and 55-minute orbit to 11 hours and 23 minutes, and it moved it in another location. And that has been confirmed by the telescopes. It was expected to be a huge success if it only slowed the orbit by about 10 minutes. But it actually slowed it by 32 minutes. Now, this is a watershed moment for planetary defense and a watershed moment for humanity.
Back down here on Earth, last week in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, the October 7th edition of the Virginian Pilot, headlined, quote, "Mystery boom rattles Outer Banks, shaking windows and ripping pictures off walls," close quote. They went on to report that late Thursday morning, October 6, 2022, a big boom shook parts of the Outer Banks, rattling windows, shaking pictures off of walls, scaring family pets, and driving people to social media to see if anyone knew the source. The U.S. Geological Survey looked for seismic activity data strong enough to make such a loud boom from Corolla through Kill Devil Hills and Nag's Head down to Hatteras, but they found nothing. A spokesperson for Oceana Naval Air Station in Virginia Beach, a spokesperson with the Marine Corps, and a Navy spokesperson for the USS Gerald R. Ford that had launched into the Atlantic Ocean on Tuesday, October 4th. They all said there were no military training or flights in the Outer Banks region on October 6, 2022. Other ideas are atmospheric inversion layers, where sound waves bounce from the ocean surface to the air layer and bounce back and forth until the wave of sound reaches the shore. Loud mystery booms have been reported from New York to North Carolina's Outer Banks since at least 1850, and probably centuries before. What happened in 1850 is that writer James Fenimore Cooper wrote a short story entitled The Lake Gun about New York State's Lake Seneca, where very ominous-sounding booms had long been reported. In 1850, James Fenimore Cooper wrote, quote, "It is a sound resembling the explosion of a heavy piece of artillery, and it cannot be accounted for by any known laws of nature. The reported booms are deep, hollow, distant, and imposing. The Seneca Lake seems to be speaking to the surrounding hills, which send back the echoes of its voice in accurate reply. No satisfactory theory has ever been broached to explain these noises." So a mystery from at least 1850 to 2022. These deep, mysterious booms have gone beyond Seneca Lake in New York to places like Kill Devil Hills in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, not far from where the Wright brothers flew an airplane for the first time in 1903 near Nag's Head, where a house-shaking boom was heard last Thursday, October 6, 2022, and reported by many on Facebook. Holly's post: "We just experienced a big boom and our house shook considerably. Anybody else experience this? We're located in Kill Devil Hills at the 6 Mile Post." Connie Fox, 11:35 a.m., Bay Drive and 5th Street, and Kill Devil Hills. Sounded like a bomb and shook the house. Terry Walsh: "Yes, we heard and felt it here on Clamshell just off Bay Drive." Sharon Simpson: "Jets?" Corin Sandy: "What time did this happen? Because our glass balcony door randomly shattered at 10:30 a.m. today in Kill Devil Hills for no apparent reason." Another ear witness of the mysterious huge boom was also in Kill Devil Hills on the Outer Banks since 1978 when she was 15 years old. Her name is Julia Shear. Give a sense of where you live and its relationship to the Outer Banks.
My house is about 4 blocks across the bypass from the ocean, so that puts me about half a mile from the ocean. My office is on the east side of the bypass, so I'm only about 4 blocks from the ocean where I sit in my office, which is where I was last Thursday, October 6th, when the boom went off. I am in a 2-story office building. There are 10 units. I'm on the ground floor. So it's a substantial-sized building. And about 11:30, there was this massive boom, but it didn't sound like a sonic boom because that is one big boom and it's done. I don't know if this echoed or reverberated, but it was like boom, 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 boom.
Huh.
And the entire building shook. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And then come to find out, everybody on Facebook is, what was that? What was that? Did you hear that? And people up and down the beach on Facebook reported, heard it here. I'm at the 6 Mile Post. I'm at the 8 Mile Post. My office sits right at about the 5.5 Mile Post. So people for a couple of miles north and south of me reported hearing it.
And I'm holding in my hand the Virginian pilot The headline, Mystery Boom Rattles Outer Banks, Shaking Windows and Ripping Pictures Off Walls. This was October 7th, the day after the event that you're describing. By now, various news operations have consulted with the Department of Defense. There have been outreaches to the local Marine Corps. There is no information that there was any military activity in the sky.
Correct.
The U.S. Geological Survey searched for any seismic activity in the area strong enough to cause the boom, but found nothing.
Right, and we do have a Navy bombing range a little bit to our west in Stumpy Point. And when everyone was talking about it on Facebook, someone who lives like right next door to the range said, "It's not out here. There's no bombing going on today." So there was an eyewitness living next to the bombing range when that boom went off.
There is a statement by a USGS release that there is, quote, no agreement on a cause for these booms through history, that most cases have never been explained.
Exactly. That's why people say, oh, it's Seneca guns, which are just mysterious booms. I have heard them for 40-some years that I have lived on the Outer Banks. I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard mysterious booms.
And this one of October 6th, where would you put it in terms of intensity of the boom energy?
I don't know if it was echoing or reverberating, but normally it's just one boom. But this was like boom, boom, boom. It sort of rolled like thunder, which was very unusual.
Can you explain what the name of your town, Kill Devil Hills, means?
There are a couple of stories. The main one that I know is back in pirate days, our shores right off of our coast are very treacherous. We're known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. We have thousands of shipwrecks off of our shores. Pirates used to like to walk the top of the dunes with lanterns to lure our ships to our shores. And they used to say that when you sailed and you could see the dunes, that you had to beware because the shoals were so dangerous they could kill the devil. So it just sort of got twisted around to Kill Devil Hill. It was an old sailor thing that, hey, when you come by here, beware, these hills can kill the devil.
And the local history goes back how far in these booms?
As long as I can remember, they have been going on.
A lot of people write me, email me, and ask, could it be the UFO, UAP, extraterrestrial presence on the Earth are the ones behind the booms, the metallic sounds, all of the strange sounds that have especially been reported in my reports and at Earthfiles since 2012. There seemed to be some, like a transition, a change, and suddenly these reports of booms and metallic sounds and crashes and buzzes and hums really accelerated from 2012 and persists to this day. And I don't have any proven evidence that UFO, UAPs are responsible. But what has been happening is that I am getting a lot more military reports from people who have retired or they may have gone from military into another profession, and they are writing some of their own proven firsthand statements about what they have been exposed to. And I thought I would share this one with you tonight. This is a person who is a medical doctor, and between 1969 to 1971, he was a U.S. Army intelligence analyst. And he says, quote, "While conducting certain studies for General Westmoreland while in Vietnam, I worked in the Combined Intelligence Center, a top secret building the size of a football field without any windows, while carrying out a specific study classifying various actions along with gains and losses from all action reports in the daily logs in Vietnam. I read numerous reports of UFOs hovering over some of our hottest battles. Observers found no evidence that the UFOs were affecting the battle in any way, and we had no idea what were these big, shiny silver objects doing up there over the Vietnam battles. Now, there may be people in the audience today who may have served in Vietnam. I know that over the years since I started trying to investigate animal mutilations and human abductions, that I have periodically met people. One said to me, remember that movie Predator? And that there was this shape-shifting presence in the jungle in the Vietnam War. And I have had firsthand discussions with people who say, yeah, during the Vietnam War, there was something there that could appear and disappear. So from booms to wars where there are UFOs over battlefields, where there are shapeshifters, there are so many levels and facets to this phenomena that may be related to other intelligences. And the thing that helps me the most is to receive firsthand experiential information from all of you. And some of you now are referencing me to people who are still professionals, whether it's in intel or military or medicine especially, and aerospace. And I am being reinforced by many things I've been exposed to, and that is one of the great benefits of being able to do Earthfiles YouTube channel these Wednesday nights, is for me to share information that might spark something from your own lives, from your own professions, that you can feel comfortable in writing in a letter to me, or writing email, or writing ProtonMail. And all of it helps for me to keep, like a Pointillism painting, the more dots that I get that are really evidentiary, the clearer some of the pictures become. And then I can continue to share with you guys on Wednesday nights. So I find it fascinating that the booms continue in such a mysterious way, and that in that particular area of North Carolina up to New York, that going back to the 1850s and probably before, have been these strange booms that were considered to be ominous in a strange way back in when Fenimore Cooper was writing, and probably going back further. If it is not natural, is it something that is unnatural, that is the byproduct of something else that's going on our planet, perhaps underground even? So I open to you to give me feedback on these subjects tonight and all. And with that, I would like to transition to my dear friend and colleague, Ian Holling in England. And Ian, what have you got up for the first pitch here?
Okay, Linda, we've got people speculating on what the cause of these booms are. We've got people saying, for example, Diana C. Castillo says the Earth core is changing due to magnetic shift. That's the reason of those sounds, but the governments aren't telling us about what is to happen. Chad Robbins says, I wonder if the booms have anything to do with the Earth's electromagnetic field getting weaker. Katie Hyatt says, it's the Space Force entering and exiting our atmosphere. We've also got an interesting one here from Leanne Marshall. She says, my parents used to live in Southport, North Carolina, which is south of Wilmington. We heard the mystery booms many times coming from out in the ocean. It sounded like cannon booms.
Yeah, I really am interested in that very low idea of these booms that go on like thunder, but they are also sort of mechanical in terms of their repetition. And for everyone who, all of those are good suggestions, but we also have to keep in mind that if the timeline goes back to 1850 and before, that is before we had planes. We didn't even have, it's in Kitty Hawk and in that area of the Devil Hills that in 1903, that the Wright brothers flew a plane for the very first time. So you go back to 1903, we still don't have planes. So you have to, sometimes I have to get pieces of paper and do timelines. Like this was invented, this came into production, and you use different color pens. And then you start looking at timelines and overlaps, and it can be really an education about what we take for granted today in the 21st century that was not even in existence in the 19th and early 20th. So when you come to these strange thunder-like, but not thunder because everybody seems to respond as if it is something like a boom from an explosion, then what could make that? And that's what I would love to know. But if it is something in the non-human category, I would assume that our government has known what it is for a very long time. And then that redirects back to any of you who may actually have firsthand hard information from actual work that you have done for intelligence or military or medicine or aerospace science. If you can communicate with me, it helps direct me toward what is can be evidentiary, and that's what I like to report for you. Okay, Ian.
Yeah, Linda, on the point about it being going back several years, we've got Marco in the chat. Marco says, I live on a coastal North Carolina barrier island. The booms have been happening here for 100 plus years. Yeah. No one knows if I speak to old timers in their late 80s, they experienced it when they were kids, and also their parents and grandparents too. So it's not technology. They call it the Seneca guns.
Yes, which I went into in this report. And that word Seneca was Seneca Lake in New York, not down in the Outer Banks. That then expands that. That's why one of the newspapers said that this was at least going back to 1850 and maybe centuries before. And so you, again, you're into to the timelines of reporting and news. 1850, you can find old records. And if they were going on before that, in the United States, it was really a young country, but in England and Europe and on into the other parts of the world, there are these various timelines from various centuries going back. As everybody knows, you get back to Egypt and that whole world, and we don't have a really clear picture about whether or not it was directly UFOs and ETs themselves who were the civilization that had those names. I mean, that's one of the big question marks. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, we've also got a fascinating report in the chat here from someone who says that in the 1950s, the military person who wrote a UFO book they're actually looking at up now elaborates in a whole chapter regarding mystery light booms. So it was actually referenced in a 1950s UFO book as well.
And if you take 1850 as some kind of a benchmark with the Fenimore Cooper book, and this is 2022, then that was 172 years ago to 1850. And it may have gone on for centuries before then, but at least 172 years ago, and these were similar reports between New York and going down the southeastern part of the United States. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I've got a reference as well to the 1968. This is Mr. Radio says, I was there, Vietnam, 1968. We saw many UFO objects.
Oh, in Vietnam.
That's right. I've asked for more information, so let's hope if he can give us a little bit more specific information of things that he saw himself and witnessed.
And some of the technology, including the so-called shape changing that was in the Predator movie. In my book, An Alien Harvest, I have a fascinating report that was from a man who had served in Vietnam. And this one scene that he's describing among many things that happened to him. And try to imagine this. You're in that war. You're surrounded by jungle. There are all kinds of vines that are coming down and snakes and all of that. And this man described with all of his guns and everything that he's walking in this jungle atmosphere, and he thinks that what's in front of him are the jungle vines and everything that he's been walking through. And he walks and hits. It hurt him. He walked into something, and he said he was so suddenly shocked and then terrified. What is this? And then he started gingerly putting his hands on what he thought were still vines and roots and all of the growth. But his hands, he thinks that he's touching leaves. And then he realizes it is a sphere. And it's maybe 30 feet in diameter or something, I remember, something like that. And then he realizes it is an entire mirrored surface. It is reflecting every green leaf, tendril, everything. And that the only way he could tell anything about his hand going into what he thought would be a leaf and hitting something that felt so hard, because he couldn't see any difference. And that, I believe that person, and I believe that is a solid report. And for people who are very interested in the whole issue of military voices and experiences, my whole opening chapter in Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, the whole thing, that whole huge chapter, is about military voices and experiences that people in military have had. And it can be really substantial. I think a lot of people have served in parts of the world, and they probably have even encountered non-humans. But there have been such strict policies of denial about the whole situation that, as I've said before on this program, reality has been classified. And we're waiting for reality to be unclassified so we can all share in the truth. And tonight, this whole issue of strange sounds and what are UFOs doing over battlefields, and these are all facets, I think, of an alien presence in some way that I would sure like to understand better and continue to report to you always. Okay, Ian.
Yeah, staying on the booms, Caroline Boyce says that in 2021, she says that she was witness to a boom. She's not heard any since. It was so loud and scary, it sounded like someone dropped dynamite, but my mom in the other room did not hear it. So weird.
I've heard that before. A person said it felt like and sounded like a bomb blew up the X end of our house. I've had letters and emails come saying those words. And that a person in another room at the end of the house never heard anything. And that is similar to a case, as I recall, it was in the Southeast. I believe it was Georgia. And this was a man who had I think it was 40 feet off the ground, he had branches in a large tree that were like severed off when they heard this tremendous, huge, booming sounds. He ran out of the house. He went across the street to a neighbor. The neighbor heard nothing. There was another case where there were 4 or 5 houses on one side of the street, 4 or 5 houses on another, like in a block. And the people who lived in this house at the end of this string here, they called me. We did an interview. I got to interview several people in that family. And I asked them, would you go to everyone, go to the people across the street and go to your neighbors and ask them if they have heard anything and let me know. And the next day they called and said, we don't understand this. The people to our right on our side of the street, they all heard it. Not a single person across the street, which is just across the street in 4 or 5 houses, they didn't hear anything. How do you compartmentalize explosive sounds? Well, Mark Wood, a retired Navy captain who helps me a lot on various kinds of Google Earth and latitude, longitude, and when we are looking through like looking at the Earth as a grid and we're trying to relate places. He called me, this was probably back, I know would be before COVID. We've got now a new way to look at life and time before COVID. And he called and emailed that he had been in the second story of where he lives in Boca Raton in Florida in a house. And he heard and felt. It was like the one wall upstairs, like it was shaken, but he said, Linda, there was no question. It was like a compression wave that came from above. He said, I was there. I know the energy came from above. And other people say their feet get slapped from below. Sidewalks get cracked. Garage doors get knocked out of the tracks. So energy coming from below that can hurt feet, break cement, knock doors out of garage. A Navy retired captain who has worked in all kinds of areas having to do with engineering and all, he's very specific. It came from above, energy that came from above. So this is two systems, something from below and something from above. And still, after since 2012, nobody has any definitive answer to these phenomena around the world. If you go back 172 years to Fenimore Cooper talking about the strange, ominous tone, and how much further does it go back? And if it is other intelligences, what would they be trying to accomplish? Or that they don't care what humans pick up on from any of their activities on the planet because they are so skilled with the technology of invisibility. So I don't have firm answers, but I'm trying all of the time to get more and more firm answers for all of you because I am convinced that we are closer now to that big breakout, "We're not alone in this universe" headline. I hope it happens this coming year. But let's keep struggling. For those of you who have not communicated and you've in your mind, oh, I'd like to tell her X, please tell me. But give me evidentiary material if you can to support it. Okay, Ian.
Well, Jason Lee Overby raises a good point. He says, has anyone employed remote viewing on these? It's probably one of the greatest Earthfiles reports that have bothered me for years.
Well, you know, I think that Jim Mars, my dear, dear friend, wherever you are, Jim, whatever dimension, we talked about the issue, I think, of remote viewing one day about several aspects of mysteries. And as I recall, that there wasn't it wasn't specifically recorded. And so the thing, I guess, what I could do is try to get in touch with some of the remote viewers from the Project Stargate. And if they haven't done a remote viewing on booms, this might be a time where I could ask Lynn Buchanan or some of the others if they could do one. This would be fascinating to see if they tuned in to this current round and that they could do the remote viewing. It might shed some light. So I'm going to thank you. I will see what I can do. And if I can move the ball a little further on this, I'll do a report in the future. Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, let's do the super chats today. We've got Moonbird. He's back in action. Caroline Boyce, Chris from Browning, Jessica Rodriguez, Jean Karcher, Rosanna Rigby, Christina Ledesma Jimenez, and John Marriott. And actually, Christina says, she mentions as well about often these booms, etc., and noises, trumpet sounds, etc., are coming from a clear sky and still no answers.
Yes. Remember, it was, I think it was also pre-COVID, and it was a report that I did do in the Earthfiles YouTube channel with the family that lived in, I think it was Switzerland, and they were up on a high mountain, and both husband and wife came out because it sounded like jets were doing circles right over their house, and they stood in their front lawn looking up in a pure blue sky, and the sound went on for several minutes. It scared them because it felt so close, the presence of what they considered to be the sound of circling jets, but they couldn't see a thing. That's in Earthfiles too. That's my Earthfiles.com
that's a good point,
report.
because we've got other people who've reported, for example, that there have been sounds like helicopters or other boom sounds that have been right above them, but there's actually nothing there, and it seems to be coming from the sky.
Right. And we know, or at least I've been told by several people in what would be a military aerospace context, and I think I've said this before here, one of the strongest technologies that the UFO, UAP world uses on this planet is invisibility. That is one of their strongest technologies. That implies that they could be anywhere, just anywhere, and humans and retinas are not going to be seeing them. We may feel them in another way.
Yeah, Kathy Benish says, back in 2013 in Omaha, Nebraska, a friend of hers and her were sitting on the front porch, and suddenly we started hearing the super loud whirring whistling that seemed to be coming from everywhere.
And it was like a whistling sound.
That's what she's described it as. And I saw a comment earlier about a helicopter type sound really early in the morning, yet the person went out, looked up into the skies, and could see nothing there at all.
I know that we have a lot of invisibility technology, some of it probably back engineered from whatever we have found in some of the crashed UFOs, or technologies have simply been handed to us by, let's say, alleged allies in the tall whites and maybe the Nordics. And so it's like, where do we humans stand in relationship now to technologies that can be the same as, or they have been given to us, that we can do Alcubierre warp drive, we can go light years in a few, 4 or 5, 6 days is one ratio for 50 light years. And that invisibility, I don't think that that is a subject that people have expected to learn a lot about in terms of leaks from our government or other governments. But now the question is, how sophisticated is Homo sapiens sapien military technology and plane technology, especially if we have back engineered or simply been handed technology from someone like the tall whites, and then it gets really mixed up, because humans could be using invisibility technology and ETs using invisibility technology, doing all kinds of things, and the general civilization on Earth doesn't really have much awareness at this point outside of being exposed in a movie like Predator about shape-shifting and invisibility that has been in movies. And people aren't thinking, oh my God, it's real. It's right around us. You can have the sound of jets right above your head and you can't see a thing.
Linda, we've got a comment here from Zuvuva, Zuvuya, who says balls of light entered his van. He says in 1995 at the California-Nevada border, 6 softball-sized spheres of light came into my van, 3 blue and 3 white. All 6 spheres of light went into a guy's chest. His aura lit up, and he shapeshifted.
Into? What did he shapeshift into?
It looks like it says here 2 lion and pan. I'd like to ask for some clarification there on exactly what he shapeshifted to.
Well, that's crucial. Hopefully, can you ask him with what you've got to work with? Can he reply now what the shapeshifting was into, so I can hear it?
Yeah, he's in the chat. He's answered twice now already, so let's hope he can. And there's a 200 character limit, I think, in the chat. So put another message in there and give us a bit more information on what he shapeshifted into. Yeah,
please, so that tonight before we transition out, that I could know what the shapeshifting was too, and then I could tell you if I have any other comparison of something else, because there is a wide range of what things shapeshift into. And it's like which ones do which.
And Mr. Radio, the Vietnam vet from '68, says, we thought Charlie was shooting off rockets when we saw the craft.
Really?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get a bit more information there on his personal experiences.
Yeah,
way back to 1968.
Yeah, any of you who served in the Vietnam War and have had face-to-face with beings, craft, experiences with invisibility, any and all of it, please let me know. Go ahead, Ian.
Another person here in the chat, Troy Rodriguez, says we had these odd sounds over our Pershing CAS sites in Germany in the early 80s.
And what was it they were seeing?
Well, Troy, can you give us a bit more information? Please enter it in the chat. And also, any of these people can contact us directly at Earthfiles, at earthfiles.com.
Yes, everybody. My email in general since 1999 is think of a reporter who files news about the Earth. So it's EARTH, F as in Frank, ILES as in Sam, Earthfiles at earthfiles.com. Same word twice.
All okay.
Right. Go ahead.
Zuvuya, I think I'm pronouncing this properly, says the guy shapeshifted into a lion and a demon-looking thing, and my mind asked, I don't even know who you are. He replied, I am Pan.
Pan, the Pan character. Well, automatically, and it's been brought up before in Passport to Magonia by Jacques Vallée, that things that have been classified as fairy tales or folklores throughout centuries could very well be cohabitation or the presence coming in and out of being able to be seen and then still could be among humans and not seen in so many stories. And so it's the parallel of an evolving fairy tale, legend, all of that has always been there, sort of juxtaposed against what humans have experienced, let's say in the modern world, and don't understand. And I think that was one of the great contributions in Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia, was bringing into focus that what we are experiencing now, you can go back into old folklore and it's very similar. And the changing, the shape-shifting, the skinwalker, that's what the word skinwalker meant to the Utes and the Navajos. Those were allegedly human-like or humanoid-shaped beings that the American Indians described seeing them shape-shift. sometimes disappear, but sometimes turn into a standing wolf or something. So the skinwalker in the United States, the Pan, the other figures from historic fairy tales and legends, it's like all the same thing. And it may be that eventually we're finally going to be educated enough with some truth that we will know that that has been an alien presence juxtaposed with humans on this planet for literally millennia.
Jill Tofferi says, Linda, I saw a jet, and she's put this in inverted commas, as it was noiselessly flying over my house, become invisible as I watched. After it was invisible, then I heard the loud jet engine sound.
So she saw it transition from something like a jet into invisibility while she continued to hear it?
That's right. She witnessed it herself. So she's actually seen that. I don't know exactly where that happened. Linda, if you're Jill, if you're still with us, give us some more details in the chat. We've got a lady of the woods says she saw a shapeshifter who went up into a cloud, floated off, and wouldn't have believed it if she hadn't have seen it herself.
What was the shapeshifter shaping and shifting in and out of as they went into the cloud?
Lady of the Woods, please give us more information so we can share it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Linda, can we ask everyone to remind everyone to hit the likes, please?
Oh, the like button. If you like what we're doing at the Earthfiles YouTube channel, please let us know. And all of these issues of support are part of the world we live in these days, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. It's interesting as well, we've got people who are contacting us in the chat saying from all over the United States. Shawnee B, Naturalista, says, I live in Long Beach, California. I can corroborate the booms felt here. It was 8:40 on a Monday morning as I was setting up for a Zoom meeting. I thought there were earthquakes. And we've had another one here who says, Annie Boo Boo says, we had booms in November 2017 in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and several of us heard them.
And what date?
Second one was in 2017.
Oh, okay, that's quite a ways back. I know that there have been booms and boom reports to me just within the last 5 years from Arizona and the Northwest, and the boom reports come every single year since 2012 in all of my Earthfiles. If you go to www.earthfiles.com and in the search button, it's a blue rectangle, type in the word booms. I think there's something like 363 reports or something. And that's just in 2012 up to 2022. That's 10 years. But these 10 years, for whatever is the reason that is not clear to me or to those of us on the outside of the, we'll call it the black world, the power brokers, it's not clear at all what keeps this going. It's not.
Savoya says, and he's adding to this now, I was at Lake Mead camping. This green fluorescent light came out of the sky twisting. The next morning, this guy walks up with red dreadlock hair and needs a ride to California. I gave him a ride. He was a shapeshifter. I think if you could please contact us, we'd be interested to know this full story and look into this a little bit more and follow up with you.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so please contact us at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. We'll look out for a full story and hopefully follow up and find out more about this incredible experience that this guy's had with this strange shape-shifting guy.
Have you got more questions from our people in the chat?
Hey, yes, well, this is changing gears a little bit more. This is from Chris Browning. He says, can you please tell us as much as you can think of reincarnation of the human soul? Thank you. How do you do that in 5 minutes?
What just went into my head as I was listening to those words was it was like a a square rushed into my head, and it just kept expanding, literally. And I felt like in that 3 seconds that I was going from this cube out to infinity. That was the most unusual reaction to that question. But that's how big it is to me. That I feel, as I have said on this program before, that the experience I had when I was 21 years old in the mountains in Idaho, with everything turning into light and something that felt like warm jello lifting my own hands up in front of me. And it was a thought voice in my mind. It wasn't my voice. It was a thought voice from other. And you are one with the light. The light is one with you, and you are in the hands of God forever. That is the strongest support of my life. It has affected so many things. It has given me courage. It has given me strength. And it's given me humility. Because I feel that there is something about human life that we have never understood, and that the whole reason for our existence is to contribute to the recycling of souls in and out of the light. And that there is a risk that I don't understand, that not all souls go to the light. I find that very confusing. And one of the things about getting into animal mutilations first and having to find that courage to go out into pastures by myself, to excise with scalpels tissue from these animals, and to do it in the context of trying to understand who or what would be doing this around the world and why, and not painting the why answer into any particular category until I felt that I really knew the truth. That was 43 years ago that I made that first trip to Sheriff Tex Graves up in northern Colorado, when he told me, Linda, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space, 43 years ago. And what is odd is, to be very honest with you all, I find the entire landscape of humans, alien intelligences, holographic universe, I find it more confusing now than it ever was before. And the reason why it is more confusing to me now, there have been periods where I thought, I understand this, oh, we have help from here, we don't have help from here. Oh, the government is over a barrel. The government is filled with power brokers who only want money. All of this back and forth. But always feeling like that in each year of the 43 years, I was beginning to understand the who's and the why's with more details. In the last 3 years, from pre-COVID to now, I have found myself feeling that it is so much more complicated, so much more layered, all of it. The it is the the whole universe we're in. I have not one doubt, one question that that the universe is teeming with consciousness. Consciousness is being aware, self-aware, interacting with. It could be interacting with the fractal creation of the universe, the mathematical aspects of the universe. It can be interacting with various energy systems. The goals might be that the souls, to be healthy and to evolve, should be going from dimension to dimension to dimension. And therefore, all of it becomes more complex and at the same time more confusing. Because I think that in the last 3 or 4 years, that I have had information coming from people that are proven where they have worked, who they have worked for, and I have had some amazing discussions. But instead of things becoming clearer, what I am finding is where you thought that you had some sense that there was perhaps support for the evolutionary existence of an experiment, a genetic experiment, Homo sapiens sapien. Extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien. The sentence in the government document that I read in 1983 here at Kirtland Air Force Base. And at some point, I accepted that that was one of the clear pieces that was true. And that meant that we were somebody's laboratory experiment, and Star Trek and other movies have conditioned us with stories like there was one, The Laboratory, and it was a long time ago, but they had the grays behind these one-way mirrors, and humans were living life out here, and it was so clear that somebody was sending a signal, here's the truth, this is the way we are on Earth. We're watched, we're manipulated, we're genetically manipulated, we are tested, we are guided, and I think all that is true. But why I think it is much more difficult now. The concept of the soul recycling, which is where the question began. I always end up coming to this question to myself. If there are dozens and dozens of civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy, and there are 2 or 3 billion or trillion galaxies in this one universe, and if humanity is the result of a laboratory experiment from competing extraterrestrial civilizations, as I understand it, and that we have never been told the truth, that we are the subject of the experiment. It could be one having to do with biological, organic consciousness versus artificial intelligence. What if this entire universe was playing out a huge laboratory, like following and trying to understand the development of any life form over a period of 1 billion years. And we are monitored and we are experimented with. Why? From where? By whose judgment were the avatars inserted into Earth in the strange ways that they were? And how much are we going to find out in the next year or two? Because I keep reading articles that seem to me to be supporting more and more and more that this is a holographic universe. And a holographic universe is one that would be projecting light in some sort of mathematical form in which all of this that we consider to be matter is part of the projection. Who's doing the projection? And what is the relationship between a projected holographic universe and the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, up to 12 dimensions? Because that's another facet that in the last 3 years alone, there are more people who are talking to me as abductees, in which now the whole issue of dimensions, evolution into other dimensions, seems to be increasingly described. Well, what is the relationship of other dimensions to a universe that is a projected hologram from either another universe or another dimension? And this is where you begin to feel like not only are you trying to put the dots of a pointillism painting accurately on, but how far do you have to stand to see the real picture in all the pointillism dots? And that's where I am on October 12th, 2022. I'm trying to see the pointillism dots for what they really are. And the fact that it is more confusing and more difficult now than it was 43, 33, 23 years ago, that suggests to me that something has fundamentally changed in its interactions with this planet. But what that is difficult to understand because it is only felt by the people I know, abductees, investigators. There is a sense that something else, some other kind of frequency, has been affecting the planet since the end of 2019. COVID is just a part of it. And that makes me nervous, because I would like to be able to say in total heart, total truth, that the recycling of souls is the fundamental energy, frequency, and goal of this universe. But the truth, I think, is that there may be other frequencies and energies that are even competing at that level, that want to harvest from that level. And who do humans turn to then for the deepest truth? Okay, that is truly a part of where I am and why I find investigations so frustrating in their contradictions and juxtapositions of information that is not easily understandable. But tonight, I want you all to feel my energy, feel from my soul that what happened to me in that Idaho mountain when I was 21 years old, that whatever that energy was that brought my hands together in front of me and held them, something felt warm and was holding my hands on the backside. And that voice that went into my mind, you are one with the light is one with you, and you are in the hands of God forever. That voice, that frequency has never left. I would like to make it go to every consciousness on this planet, and that all blusters about nuclear war all blusters about more diseases being used as weapons would be banished like that. I pray every day that the negative energy that seems to be trying to take hold of this planet will go. And maybe where I am now, after 43 years of trying to understand, in the beginning, animal mutilations and UFOs and ETs, maybe if I understood the entire huge truth behind the thought voice, behind the warmth that held my hands, if our universe is holographic, if it is truly projected from another dimension or another universe, if the experiment is what happens if you create a universe and you put biological, evolutionary consciousness in that universe, because the universe that is projecting the hologram may be entirely artificial intelligence. That the very complexity of humans, there are so many great things, so many strengths, but we are always kept dumb and blind, and that weakens us. So I wish I could give you firm answers about the recycling of souls. And all I can do is tell you intuitively, inside of me, inside of this life, I've been all over this planet, I've had extraordinary things happen. And every single one of the extraordinary, like Idaho, have always been on the side of strengthening that pressure in my chest that I think is my soul. And I think you all have that. And I don't know why it is so difficult to be on this planet. Why are we not sharing from soul to soul the energy of acknowledging and recognizing another being? Instead, it seems like something is trying to divide us in 1,000 ways. And I don't trust that at all. So, I've given you my heart and soul thoughts tonight. I won't do it very often. But all of us need to try to help each other understand what each of you are encountering, communicate with me honestly and straightforwardly, especially if you are in military, in intelligence, in aerospace, in medicine, in science, and you know for a fact that X-intelligences are working this planet, and if you have evidentiary material Y, if you have hypothesis about what is actually happening, I would really, really like to receive ProtonMail, email, written, because I think this is one of the most important times ever on planet Earth. And it may be that in the end, if we had consciousness that went out 1,000 years, that we would look back at 2019 as the last year of humanness. Because to go on through the evolution of the next decades is to move more and more toward artificial intelligence, definitely to go out into space, introduce the other civilizations that are there, and maybe that's the big landscape. What happens to biologicals when it takes artificial intelligence in spades to become a space-faring civilization. Maybe that's the reason that it all started. That's the test. That's the question. But I'm sure glad, as a Homo sapien, that I have been able to work with you guys, and I look forward to continuing to do it. And if we now take this as what is going to happen next in terms of our finally being told the truth that we're not alone in this universe, and if it happens in 2023, will it impact the worst parts of what is happening on the planet? And that is something to keep watching and reporting about. And with that, you guys, thank you for letting me have the space to respond to the soul question longer and deeper. But something in me feels this is the level at which we need to communicate. So I love you, fellow beings on planet Earth, and I'll look forward to seeing you here next Wednesday. Thank you.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.